The real problem is not the people overtaxed, the real problem is the government spending too much. If one money can die, so what will survive? When people talk about inflation, usually they speak in numbers: how many % per month, how many sheets silver needed to buy a loaf of bread. But numbers are just the tip of the iceberg. Below are the systems. Social neurosis is moral, torn into denominations, is episodic, memory can be distorted by the printer's his money. The book you are about to enter just a historical document about Germany 1923. It is a living record of those the moment when an entire civilized society slip off the path of reason. Are not must be because of war, not because of natural disasters, but because of systematic carelessness in control of something seemingly insignificant: image, faith in money. And it is worth it. The scariest thing is that there is nothing in the story this is unrepeatable. So the sentence asks not that it can happen out again, not when it happens do we have enough memory to realize it. Are you ready to remember? We encourage listeners to purchase and read to fully appreciate the content. Use this book now. Let's get started. Finally, I summarize this book. Chapter 1. Gold foreign in 1920 amid a Europe devastated after the Great War. Came to Germany not to observe an economy that is to enter a new world. The world is falling apart penny by penny. Berlin no longer the city of light, of the mind, wisdom and aesthetics, which are but a shadow of itself, dirty and torn under full breath panic. The mark was once a symbol of national resilience. Now it's just a piece of soft glitter paper exchange for half a loaf. Bread is also glared at by the seller probing eyes. World War I took away many things: life, territory, faith, belief. But nothing leaves a deep cut like a currency slide. Right from when the dollar first fell because of the government decided to finance the war by print more money instead of raising taxes, seed of the great disaster was sounded. One call it a patriotic decision. Don't let people have to suffer more. Just let it be. The central bank bears the rest. But love of country is sometimes a mistake. The most sophisticated deception, especially when it paid for with bread, charcoal, and dignity. They say that at that time, patriotism is to exchange gold for iron. Leader: one government-backed movement has spread among the people, both nobles and commoners, wearing gold wedding ring jewelry, silver to donate to the state. In exchange get an iron badge with an engraved inscription: Gap Fien. I gave gold for iron. Everyone believe that I contribute to victory, to the greatness of Germany. They don't know that I am putting the future in my hands. A financial magic trick will become horror that lasted for decades. One: the old lady who stood in the middle of the square Alexanderplatz school, holding badge iron, eyes blank. We have donate your gold to the country, she said to me in a whisper as if confessing sins now. The land that country cannot give us enough money by milk. Is there anything more painful than betrayal? Betrayal from the ideals we once cherished with all confidence. In the congregation's National Assembly, school MPs argue on war reparations, on treaties velas, as if that were the only reason of disaster. But none of them want to look at the truth. The economy of we are living on money printed from the machines ran non-stop all night. Unbacked money by production, wealth, or belief. It is the specter of greed and fear disguised as a banknote. At that time, I met a strange character, Dr. Hirik, a man of cold charm with eyes always looking deep into the interlocutor, seemed to be prying out the truth real. He was a senior politician, a wartime financial architect, and was also the one who helped lay the foundation for unlimited money printing policy. He believes absolutely that as long as Germany keeps productivity, then inflation will be temporary time. But he forgot that faith is not can be printed but cannot be bought by mouth effect. I remember one afternoon in Hilferic's office, where he told I said firmly, "When fighting the picture is over, everything will be fine." Then he took out a 1,000 ma bill and held it up. Up as a proof. I look at it, see nothing but empty promises, hollow. A few months later, that piece of paper was gone. Worth as much as a circus ticket. That is when I realized the economy wasn't dead because of lack of money and because of loss of direction, virtue. When people no longer distinguish what is real value, what is dream imagine, then the whole society will slide down like a drunkard walking in the fog, know where to go, just know to step next. Germany that year was not short of money, but excess counterfeit money. Money is no longer the answer. Convenient exchange that becomes something people use to light fireplaces, wrap vegetables, or even to play paper boat folding game. Children then laugh, but adults bow their heads over a glass of pale ale. Empty eyes, empty like the old lady of old. Everything is melting flow, both economically and spiritually. One day month, I came across a man sitting huddled in the corner of the market, arms hugging a baby suitcase full of paper money, not for spending but to guard. Every time someone comes near, he pulled the suitcase close to his chest, as if keeping a treasure. I asked him if need help. He shook his head and said, I don't have enough money to buy anything else, but I'm not stupid enough to throw them away. Real. It's hard to describe that choking feeling. When seeing money, symbol of life, become hopelessly useless. The rich panicked and looked for ways. Transfer assets abroad. They buy francs, pounds sterling, US dollars as if by life buoy. Those who don't have foreign currency then rushed into real estate, gold product, anything that is not printed paper. German central bank. So one new class emerges, not the traditional upper class, which is speculators, the one who lives on the difference exchange rate, into disorder, into holes, loopholes that the system created and then left alone they duplicate themselves. Meanwhile, the salaried workers and employees, bones, the life of the nation is crushed between two pincers. Prices are rising and copper is. Wages fall every day, every afternoon. Instead of bringing money home, they rush to spend it. Right after receiving salary. Because just wait until the next morning, that money will be gone, lost half its value. A loaf of bread during the week can double on Thursday. 7. Living in that world is living in an irregular heartbeat, where every decision, it's all a gamble for survival. 1. The pharmacy at LPZIC had to post price signs. Can change within 30 minutes. 1. The bookstore clearly states, don't ask for the price, just ask. Pay according to today's inflation rate. People's sales do not need to keep books anymore because both profit and cost become a game. Play of time. 1 minute is enough. Make every business plan a success meaningless. The funny thing is, when money is lost value, people start calculating by every other unit, rice, coal, even cigarette pack. Perhaps never in the history of money is so tarnished. Never felt embarrassed, so miserable when I saw it. A man, the restaurant owner I know, once said, the customer called one meal, I calculate the price. Bring into the kitchen. When it was time to bring it out, I had to ask for more money. They thought I was cheating, but it was the new copper. Is a traitor. In those days, I don't just see inflation, I see the silent collapse of the foundation, consensus-based civilization. People we no longer believe in the state, in the law, into the future. And when trust is lost, everything else is just a staged, deserted place where the characters act with empty eyes. I realize that the first thing that dies is not money, is a memory of stability. And when that memory erased, each day lived is just one news bulletin where everyone plays a role right in it. Like it or not. In once visited a small village near resident, I witnessed a wedding took place without a flower, without cake. The bride wore an old dress. Repaired from curtain fabric. The groom goes in pairs, borrowed shoes. Guests bring potatoes, loaf of bread, some soap for dessert. Surname still laugh, still dance, still sing the song. Love is like being in another world, where trust has not been eroded by number on supermarket receipt, and that is it. What haunts me amidst the desolation, people still try to hold on to a piece of life normal. They could lose their home, their livelihood. Money, lost faith in the government, but still married, still dreaming, still sit together by candlelight and tell stories, laugh. Maybe that's the only reason why society is not completely disintegrated, because of these, a very small piece of the human heart. Even though the crack is not completely broken yet. When I leaving Berlin at the end of that year, I brought according to a stack of millions of dollars to keep as a souvenir. Not for value of them, because they are evidence of a crazy time, where an entire nation, the family, patriotically printed money and donated money. closely by continuing to believe that everything will be fine. Chapter 2. The animal's gloomy street. Winter passes through the mountains. The deserted street of the Na tree is like the main. It's also tiring. But it was empty. No more land fertile to feed the capital, no longer brave armies as support. All that remains is a city too big for the rest of the body, and a nation is gradually collapsing under the power heavy with hunger and hopelessness. Flower Wish. Saint-Germain and Chiayan are not the blade that cuts off the territory, that is the slash that severed the life of an entire person. Old order. A large part of the country was divided. For the newly formed Czechoslovakia. A part. Great Hungary was given to Romania. But what is more cruel than the ban on people? Austria joined Germany. The only thing that can help them survive economically. Female political death had not yet ended when the economic hunger has come like a disease pandemic. And where the symbol of the empire, the South, has now turned into a city of tombs. The orphanage was both large and empty. Winter. First after the war, people grouped fire with old furniture and eat with anger fierce. The soldiers return not only empty-handed but still carry a heart frozen, defeated, exhausted and full of hate. Indignant. Unlike the Germans, the Austria has no illusions. They know they have lost. But they don't know what to do when their stomachs are full, empty and head spinning with prices increasing constantly. Franna Eisenmaner, a educated widow who lived a comfortable life enough, started writing a diary. In those pages, we hear the voice the clock hands slowly knock down piece by piece. Dignity is lost. She recounted the story. Rent a small room in an apartment. I gave it to an official from the U.S. delegation. And get 10 times the rent, but she still has to pay for the entire apartment. Thanks to a restrictive law, rental prices war is still in effect. It is a paradox. Bitter reason. People living on aid. International trade has become the only source of livelihood. Of an Austrian landlady. Child. Her daughter works for an American organization. $2 a day is equivalent to 400 kron, is almost equal to a month's pension of a retired court advisor. At that time the former officers and civil servants, the high-ranking officials, were too proud to go. Job applicants often collapse from hunger in the middle of the street, fall down silently like ruined statues among the ruins. Empire. When bread became a luxury, people. We have to eat. Rumors. The news about the stock market that makes the heart. Old man beat faster than bomb. Frau Eisen manager writes that shares of she grew to the point where it almost worried me. Settle in a society where real values no longer make sense. Wealth also becomes into a form of insecurity. That truth that millions of insects are just a gust of wind. Make paper in people's hearts, not joy but fear. Afraid that tomorrow morning that money will only buy one a loaf of bread, or worse, nothing at all. The stock exchange turned into a circus where stock prices soar like balloons. No one knows when it will fall. People congratulate each other like people won the lottery, but no one dares to spend money because after spending there is nothing left. And keep tomorrow will be just a pile of waste paper. There is no place to hide but chaos. Chaos. It is a society where pain and suffering, prosperity and coexistence like two sides of the devalued currency. While poor people lined up to buy bread, then new nightclubs were opened. Truong, where wine flows like a stream and dances. Music covered up the moans of the unemployed. But the scene, that statue, only increased hatred. Class. A tension like hot coals simmering beneath the surface of the new order. Life in Vienna was no longer meager. By time but by exchange rate. A day without going to the market is a day lost. Living society. Those who have won in hand a few dollars or pounds as holding in hand the local currency not only loses value, it lost all faith. People use cigarettes, cigars for food, stocks for change, the incubation, and while hunger gnaws every middle-class family, then those guys currency manipulation. Dinner with Champark and play mandolin in nightclubs. One used bookstore near West Station where used to display a lot of gets work. Cf. Now only a few scriptures remain. A rotten saint and a sign that says hand accepting payment with soap or cigarettes. I asked the shop owner, the silver-haired man was so thin that his shirt was ripped off. A loose coat that hangs on a rack. Do you still read books? He replied with a sad smile. I read everyday vegetable price list. In the midst of that misery, Institute International Aid becomes the bloodline for an exhausted American body through the Red Cross sends food to schools. School and children's clinic. The creature small was once skinny purple because cold. Now I can drink condensed milk and eat porridge. Oatmeal. Many mothers cried when see your child get a full meal after many weeks. But the tragedy is the crowd. A crowd of adults stood outside the fence. Surname not eligible for relief, only can look like looking into a dream I never reach. Frau Eisenmaner in his diary says that there once she was invited to a tea party organized by an American woman. She burst into tears when she saw the bread. White. Not because of hunger but because of memories. Things that seemed normal before this has now become a symbol of the world is dead. I realized that hunger is not just an empty stomach is when we forget the feeling of a soft bread while those people, ordinary people facing poverty, speculators as always, are doing well. Surname know how to play with inflation like a musician, play with the guitar, sell assets for foreign currency, then use foreign currency to buy back assets when the local currency falls. With each batch crisis, they get a little richer and as a bitter farce. The government to save confidence and print more money, only to push society closer to the abyss. Remedy. And also in those days, that month, a political undercurrent was brewing. Spread throughout the garden, hatred of the sexes, finance, with government, with the world, international forces, including those who are not indigenous people, began to infiltrate each everyday story. When the stomach is hungry and the mind is obscured, people easily find to simple explanations, though unique. Harmful extreme nationalism and conspiracy theories take root like poisonous plants growing on the land of abandoned morality. But what haunts me most is not economic collapse but the way people adapt to it. Citizens now learned how to measure milk by drops. Rice equals medicine, price equals hour. They develop a strange kind of sensitivity. Unfamiliar with exchange rates like a third cent 6 just to survive. And then in the middle of the chaos, they still love each other, still engaged, still wedding ceremony in the wild cow cellar. With wedding flowers or folded newspaper. On a cold afternoon, I saw a group of street musicians performing an old version. Passers-by stop again, someone shed tears. The notes music is not meant to entertain, to remind us that we once had order, once had culture, once knew emotions, and in that moment, the street was quiet. No more joy, still something of human. This place is not dead in war that is bleeding every day in peace. Death does not come easily. Knife and sword with supermarket receipt, with knocking on the door demanding rent, equal to a meal. Rice without salt and evil if any. Are not from guns but from indifference of those who believe that printing more money will heal all wounds. Money can lost, value may reverse. But the thing is causing a society to collapse is not numbers that are the silence between the voices. Hungry indifference between eyes empty and music was echoing in the void. Determined. Chapter 3. The invoice is adjusted. When the whirlwind of war subsides and black smoke billows over Europe melt away, what remains is not just ruined cities that are a bill giant, an invisible bill, but hovering over every roof, every dining table. Every German coin now bows its head in failure, forced to pay the price. All the sins of the war are not by blood but by money. And that is it. When the story really begins. Conference VES not only redraws the world map but also redraw the economic fate of a nation, the country that once led Europe. In the room full of winners. People. Germany is not allowed to sit at the table. They don't negotiate it, only heard reading judgment. The terms are written as if as a cold sword slashing down on the neck of the enemy. Defeat. Germany must take full responsibility. Responsible for the war, and had to pay a huge compensation, not only for re-establish the law and set an example for all peoples of the world about the price of arrogance. That number is 132 billion. Gold is not just a fantasy but a sensation. Violation. No one really thought that Germany had payable, but the truth doesn't matter. Important. It is important that the French people, Belgium and Britain felt elated. Surname wanted blood but got money instead. Or rather the promise of money. One the promise was written in black ink but shouldering the grey souls. In the first years after the treaty, the Weimar government tries to please the winning parties by paying on time. To do that, they have to borrow money and continue to pretend that everything is fine, but the economy has not recovered. Recovery, industry lost raw materials and the market, unemployment is rampant. But the government still transfers money regularly for Paris and London like a sick man still forced to donate blood every day, the one who just defeated me. I remember one conversation with a young businessman in Cologne. He looked at me with his red eyes from staying up all night calculating books and breathing long. We do not pay compensation by gold but by the blood of his own children. I don't know how to answer. How? Because the truth is there. Show sore. One of the most bitter ironies, the bitterest part of that period, was that the reparations Germany was forced to pay go straight to the winning countries. Large amounts were used to pay off war debts, which he and France borrowed from the United States. Germany loaned American money to pay France. French used that money back to you, then he again used to pay off debt to the US. All of Europe became a credit system. Use of a loop where the victim and the perpetrator are changed places with just one transfer. And money is lost every second. Year 1921, when France announced the compensation figures specifically, the initial coin offering did not break. International markets reacted negatively. Not because of hate but because of the truth. Virtue. It is impossible to rebuild the country and at the same time feed millions of people while paying bills this huge debt. And as usual, the world speculators come like vultures, they buy expensive, push prices up and then sell off after every rumor bad. The money market turns into a chessboard where those with the latest information more will win. And the people, it is always the pawn that is sacrificed. In the meantime then, a character stepped into the light. Wantina, capitalist, philosopher, and now foreign minister, he tried to renegotiate terms, hoping that reason will overcome emotions, that people once as the enemy will realize the absurdity of that financial judgment. But he did not understand that at that time, Europe was not still listened to reason. They only heard echoes of bombs and bullets of the past and demand justice under form of money. Zhao was assassinated in the middle 1922. He was killed not because of policy towards foreign, because he symbolizes peace, solve what no one wants anymore. Left then consider him a traitor to the nation, yes then call him a tool of talent. International government at his funeral. I saw men standing and diving, hands clenched, mouth speechless. Like as if they understood that death was the point. Newspaper. That Germany is entering a period where everything values will be reversed and evil will prevail. More layers of masks than ever before. After death of the family, government Weimar was almost lost, internally divided, people are angry, the copper continues to slide prices while Western powers still maintain position. Germany must pay at all costs, and so to avoid bankruptcy, non-German central bank, Reichsbank accelerate print money. Each new roll of paper is produced now, sheet after sheet, denomination after denomination larger than the previous denomination. Capital figures once meant to be a joke, face value million then billion. Then trillions appear like mushrooms after rain. People caught measure value by memory, they remember the price. Yesterday's lunch compared to today's. Surname. Look at a bill and think about yesterday. I also bought 2 eggs today. Probably just enough shell. Price is no longer economic information, is an obsession, personal, and in the midst of the flood of prices those journalists, teachers, workers, classes that once prided themselves on integrity now must choose between morality and survival. I once met a university professor. He had to sell his entire personal library to buy a few kilos of potatoes and books that he said, it was my soul. Now they were my wife's dinner. He didn't said with bitterness but with acceptance, chilling as if he had stepped over an invisible boundary where reason does not. What's the use, and all is just magic between the belly and love. Between. In that situation, an international conference was held in London. French leaders, England and Germany sat down together to discuss the matter. Debt reduction, deferment, find a way out. But the French side, especially Prime Minister Paulins, takes a tough stance. If you can't pay with cash, you have to pay. By coal, by steel, by land, by its very existence. For him, any concession is a concession, betrayal of fallen soldiers down at Vannes. And so the compromise failed. Defeat. But the scariest thing is not in that failure, is in the indifference of people to what is happening. They don't still believe in the government, not believe in international, do not believe in money. The sheets newspapers wrote about exchange rates, editorials complained compensation, news releases gave the number, but all were like an echo in an empty cave. Society no more waiting for salvation, just learning, living with brokenness. In one evening late summer, I stood on the banks of the river Rhine, looking farmers rowing boats back and forth as if the war had never happened. A thin man with grey hair I told you he was a soldier. Then civil servant, then unemployed, and now climb red for hire. I asked him, how do you feel about the amount of money Germany is having to spend? Hey! He laughed, what money? We do not still know money, only know roots, potatoes, fat, and what to eat tomorrow. It was in that moment that I realized that a nation does not collapse because of lack of pay. The bills for its people no longer believe that the bill is real. When the concept of value is distorted to such an extent that no one remembers what it used to be, then everyone contracts, whether international or personal, are just pieces of paper floating silently in the air, flooded river of doubt and as a predestined destiny. The children, people born in turmoil, begin to seek to dreams for sure. They don't need money, they need enemies, they don't need reason, maybe they need a promise. And so between those meaningless money, hungry stomachs and angry hearts, a generation just started growing up without expectations but with indignation. And in that anger, the first shadows have begun to form. Wall. Chapter 4. The delirium of millions. No one remembers the exact moment everything happened. Something that has passed the point of no return. No bells rang to signal that the madness has officially begun. But people started to measure the price. Value is no longer in millions but in billions. People no longer ask how much money but ask how many billion. As if that word were new unit of the century, and that's when the German entered a state of delirium. Where money turns to smoke and reality gradually drifting away from all economic logic and human life. June 1922, nursery rhyme fluctuates at 300 m to $1. Arrive October, the number was 4,000. Then month 11 it jumped to 7,000. Every forecast, every model, economic model, all financial logic is become useless. No one, including bankers, still believe in the ability to control. Germany is like a ship without a rudder, caught in the vortex it created out, and now no one knows what the ship is doing, drifting away. Luxury cafes in Berlin, once a symbol of culture urbanization, now becoming a place for people we gather to discuss exchange rates. Every conversation the story begins and ends with number. The rich capitalists then brag about how many dollars you exchange today, how many francs. The poor are silent. Quiet. They have no words to describe what is happening. Happening around us. I met someone again, old friend C.W. was a sharp journalist of a reputable political newspaper. Now you sitting in a dark corner, face beardless, sunken eyes, chain-smoking older brother said that the whole editorial office had to pay salary 3 times a day. If a few hours late, that salary won't be enough to buy a drink beer. Can you imagine? He asked. We write about civilization. Collapsed in the race for super prices outside the market in Lausitzsch. A woman told me that she used all her savings, saved up nearly 2 million in my life to buy a pair of shoes for husband. The next day, she learned that prices have doubled. She was not angry, she didn't cry, she just sat there folding her socks. Husband then looked blankly out the window. In that world, loss no longer causes pain. Out of emotion, because emotion has been eroded every day, every bill, every ticket meaningless salary in the hall's finance, economists still hold seminar, debate on ideal depreciation level ideal to maintain stable growth. But on the street, people lined up to exchange money for something, anything at all edible, burnable, or of value retention in a few hours. Time becomes one currency. Even a single delay afternoon can make the property of both family evaporated. Meanwhile, the government continues to print money. They are no more print 100M or 1000M is 100,000 and then 1 million then 10 million. Silver paper is overflowing banks' cash-in vehicles like construction sand trucks. Schools receive salary in suitcase. Hospital pay. Tell your doctor by phone. In a shop cakes in Airford, people posted flyers. Bread quotes are adjusted hourly. Please do not be angry. Between frames that scene, the middle class used to be the backbone of Germany began to disintegrate. They did not starve, they did not rebel, they did not pillage. They disappear, they sell their stuff, sell books, sell souvenirs of fathers. Already when there is nothing left to sell, they sell everything. My beliefs. Many people rushed in speculation, exchange rate surfing, trading everything from firewood to brass, as long as it can be exchanged for something more lasting than money paper. I remember one evening in Frankfurt who traded a piano for 2 boxes of butter. No one laughs, no one find it strange because at that time butter was the music of life. Live, money changer in Dresden. Eyewitness an argument. One person. Old soldier wants to change monthly pension amount. This is Frank France, the counter clerk. Calculate and say that the total amount used to be a colonel's salary, now only can be exchanged for 3 small coins. The soldier stands again, hands shaking not because of anger but because of humiliation. This is the price of war. Is it a painting? He asked. He didn't expect anyone to pay. Word. That question haunted me all the time. The way back. The war is over but the bills still keep coming long. Every German citizen must pay it in every meal, every sleep, everything. Look in your wallet every morning. And the bitterest thing is not the loss. Poverty is the feeling of being cheated. Surname were promised glory, then they promised recovery. Now they just promise that tomorrow will be worse than today now. And that is always true. Intellectuals began to decline. I heard a professor mathematics said he was teaching students interest calculation while myself cannot calculate the amount of money to buy bread per week. Doctors prescribe anti-inflammatory drugs stomach ache while they themselves are not enough breakfast money. Lawyers, engineers, and architects research, those who represented for reason now have to live by my self-power. In Munich. I walked into a shop. Pawn inside not those guys the underdogs who lived a very decent, middle-aged man wearing an old black suit and bringing a watch grandfather's pocket watch. He bowed his head and gave it to her. He passed the counter and quickly turned away. No waiting. Looking at the price, the shop owner said nothing. Just take out the note. Prices subject to change within 15 minutes, please inform us. Have a cold. And amidst those chaotic numbers, the children still grow up but they grew up not with games but with chemistry single. They learn addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. Must be for the exam but to help parents calculate the price. Beans, milk price. They don't know stability. Determined, only know how to make ends meet. And when a generation grows up in chaos, what will grow in the heart? Gratitude or resentment? A few people still tried to keep their dignity. Surname. No smuggling, no speculation, no withdrawal from society, but they live like people. The shadow quietly. With eyes deep valley and fading dream. They are the ones who remember the past and it is the memories that hurt them the most. By they know that what is happening is not as an anomaly but an inevitable consequence. Weak. When I sat in a small cafe in Potsdam drank a glass of beer as cheap as water, the waiter told me they had no more changed the menu again because no one can read it fast enough. Each food is priced at market price. As if this is the stock exchange, a plate of sausages can double in price between noon and afternoon depending on meat supply from the market. People order food not because they crave it, but for fear that the price will increase further if we wait. It is in that fear that the national psychology began to deform. No one believed any more tomorrow. And when tomorrow is no longer, if the fulcrum is gone, reason is also swept away. People started going to anyone who spoke. Get the sure words, the extremists' political prophets, tycoons promise recovery great, and knowing that most of they are the swindlers, people still listen. Because there is no one else to trust, this psychedelic frenzy is measured in billions of cases. Every day. It's not just a financial issue, it is the most obvious manifestation of dissolution. Inner disintegration, when the value is no longer attached with labor, when money is no longer attached trust, then the whole society becomes a play act. Each person wears a mask, some laugh, some cry, some scream. But both are performing in a stage that is being played. Fire and Germany, from a great power career, now the main actor in the tragedy, the play that it wrote itself. But no one knows what the ending will be, because when people are used to uncertainty, so they lose hope. Both hope and end are equally blurred. Chapter 5. The slide into hyperinflation. Riots are not uncommon in German history, but when inflation returns become the main language of life, it make all social conflicts inevitable weak. People are not only hungry but also hunger for justice. They looked around and saw people used to be poor now drive luxury cars, live in luxury villa, and I used to be a middle-class person, save, obey the law, live honestly, had to ask for porridge from the rice station in a country where prices change every hour. The feeling of injustice needs no proof, it just needs bill. January 1923, when I got off the train at Essen, the most important industrial region Germany, I saw workers standing in a long line, expressionless faces, eyes red from lack of sleep and anger. Reason not only because food prices have doubled in just 2 weeks because of the French army officially occupied the area, heart produces coal, steel and hope, remnants of Germany. The reason Germany did not transfer the required amount of coal indemnity. The French are cold and as precise as a troop transport machine into control of mines, factories, and car crashes. Fire. They don't need guns, just show up. Area that presence was like a slap straight to the Germans' faces. The one who failed, already hungry, now also deprived of rights. Work on your land. Reaction of the Weimar government is passively resistant. Workers are called to strike. The government still pays them. Even though they don't go to do that, Reichsbank must print more money, faster, and indiscriminately than. All economic logic at that time seemed to have been broken. Throw out the window. The only goal is maintain resistance, even though it makes the foundation. The economy is in more disrepair by the hour. Between one, the workers' meeting in the factory was abandoned. The wilderness in Bum heard a young man raised his arms and shouted, "We don't. What else is there to lose but worthless money? Use." The crowd applauded loudly, but in their eyes was confusion. They know I'm being pushed to the edge, but also there is no way back. Patriotism, when not anchored reality, will turn into the main cutting blade their necks. At that time, a French journalist named Maurice R. wrote, "I have never seen a country that chooses to destroy itself economically to save face as a German." He not wrong, but he also does not understand, for the Germans, face is now the key. All because they lost almost everything other. In Berlin, I met a single mother. Body name is. She used to be a secretary, has qualifications. Degree, no 3 foreign languages. Now she lives by how to trade old dresses for food, occasionally sew bras for a shop venang spree. She said, "I'm not afraid of hunger. I fear my daughter will grow up without knowing what is value." That sentence made me silent, because in the war between inflation and dignity, not always people also know they are losing. The German tax system at that time was a bitter joke. Businesses, when interest must be calculated in billions, but when pay taxes on depreciated money. So that's it. The government, despite imposing high taxes, still collects less each year. Day in to make up for the deficit, they print again money. That vortex does not need speed, it just the wild. One afternoon in the afternoon, I stopped at a beach bar. Near road the shop owner complained that he stopped updating the prices on the menu. When a guest comes, he says, I can tell by looking at your face. How much they are willing to pay. There is no way otherwise. In that world, the law of supply and demand, the bridge becomes a fortune-telling game. No one know the price is real or fake, just know that if you don't buy now, you can buy tomorrow. Had to mortgage the shirt to buy back a loaf. In the midst of that chaotic period, a strange phenomenon occurs. People caught start calculating everything in dollars: cake price, noodles, train fare, room rent. All are converted into foreign currency. Are not because of love for America, but because it is something, the only one still trustworthy. The mark is still the official currency that has become the shadow of oneself, wandering everywhere that no one wants to touch. I have saw a man exchange a suitcase of money just to buy a piece of format and a bottle small beer as he left the store. 2 children ran after to ask for the pile of money back. I just threw it in the trash. They don't play with toys, they play with money. They stack money into a stack that folds into a machine. Fly, burn to roast potatoes. And in pairs. Their eyes no longer had any respect with the paper once called value. May 1923, the official exchange rate is 20,000 max to $1. Until July. The number is 350,000. September. It crossed the 1 million mark, but the market black school went before all. Their people trade in gold dollars, even hard goods like wool, coffee, cigarettes. A financial world new has appeared, no rules, there is no nation, only the man of character and the slow hand. The government is like this now, like a crazy cashier in the theater is on fire. They tried everything: temporary money order, decree of inspection, price controls, threats to speculators. But all just makes the situation worse, more because people are no longer afraid of the law. What they fear is waking up tomorrow morning, money in the wallet only enough to buy half a cup of coffee. Hanover, I met a fake priest. Grandfather said, I have taught the doctrine that money not God. Now we see when money dead, man turned beast. He doesn't speaking in an accusing tone, he said in voice of acknowledgement. Because he witnessed the kindest people in the parish go stealing potatoes, selling offerings, even selling church to survive. He does not judge because he knew in that whirlwind, morality also peeled like onion skin. One person, wealthy man, former banker, had to sell the last fur hat to exchange take onion. When the seller refuses because he was afraid that the price of onions would fall, he knelt down and begged. Get paid extra. It is no longer a transaction. Translation: it is a plea in the midst of a society forgot the line between money and dignity, happiness, and when devaluation is no longer an issue, the main theme that has become the essence in life, all standards change. Form marriage collapses due to money pressure. Silver. Parents send their children to America and England. Hope they can survive another world. Young people sitting in the cafe bar, drinking cheap alcohol and laughing economic lessons with them. Learn to do what? When the real world has torn everything apart. Books, but the scariest thing is not hunger but familiarity with it. German people began to accept the situation. This state is like destiny. They learn how to live in uncertainty, build life on sand subsidence as if it were natural. Surname: no more anger, no more protest, they just adapt quietly like grass. I follow the poisonous wind. Hyperinflation is not kill with knife but by erosion. It doesn't explode like war, no, screaming like violence. It drains from death, beliefs, ethics, memories, and finally will. Like a painless disease but kill from within. Lesson: no lies in the numbers but in the fact that a society can survive war but can collapse completely when lost the common price for value. Money no is just a means, it is the thread that holds all that people believe. And when that thread breaks, no one falls immediately. But things started to fall. Chapter 6. Season Summer of 1922. Wazuru's death was not it was just a political assassination, it was the death knell for a virtual era, the final thought that Germany could be independent. Save yourself with reason. Gazino is a symbol of reconciliation, of learning, of open-mindedness, and so he was killed. Killed by those who believe that every concession all are traitors, that glory is only can be redeemed by blood. Summer 1922 started with a bullet and ended in an unprecedented currency frenzy. Immediately after his funeral, the atmosphere in Berlin changed, the cafes, halls, even houses, the church began to resound with whispers. We have lost our souls, not our bodies. Because a politician fell. But because the one who killed him was praised in some classes. That's when I felt the cold does not come from summer but from human heart. Meanwhile, the exchange rate continued to the continuous movement is like a crazy dance. In early June, $1 was worth 320 marks. By the end of the month, the number was 670. No one understands what's going on anymore, or rather, everyone understands. But no who dares to say we are losing control. We are falling into a spiral that we ourselves have created by satisfaction in harmony with illusion. Bourgeoisie. Those people who thought they could stand out of the storm, now start selling assets not because of need for money but because of fear of tomorrow everything will be gone. Antiques, paintings, drawing, silverware. All inherited items kept from great-grandfather, all are on the floor, and buyers, mainly Americans, you or the black marketeers. Those guys bring foreign currency and collect each piece to Germany's past. A jewelry store in Lechane, where a skinny old lady was giving shop owner a hairpin. My mother's gold, she said, when I was little, I still look at it every time she brushes her hair. The shop owner did not look up, just whispered, now only enough to buy 2 kilos of flour noodles. The old lady nodded, no bargaining. I cannot forget that look, as if she had buried his mother a second time. The newspapers start printing exchange rates daily, then hourly. Radio stations are constantly updated as weather. All conversations in the car, electricity, in public restrooms, even the relationship between two strangers revolves around money loss. People no longer talk about poetry and music. Music or war, only one topic only, money and helplessness. That summer, Germany has no war, no storm flood, no epidemic, but still flooded in chaos by the very faith that is rotten. No one believes in the state, no one trusts banks, no one trusts into colleagues. The collapse comes to nothing not by explosion but by sound breaking the silence of human connections together. During a visit to a house rice bank printing press, I saw rolls of paper billowing like waves. The printing worker no longer needs to check for errors. Printed is depreciated. Older brother sarcasm. Who has time to read? I asked, what do you do with your salary? He said, every the day my wife took her salary to the market, she bought it right away. Anything edible, even raw garlic, pickles, salt or soap. And that's when I realized that hyperinflation not only makes poverty, it dirty life. It turns everything instinctive decision, every action become a survival reflex. Good people too become famous, bad people get more merciless. All promises are meaningless because no one dares wait until tomorrow. In season that crazy summer, only one thing remained stronger than inflation, the craving for stability. People began to turn to mainstream groups. Extremists not because they agree but because they need something certain. A resolute voice, a clapping hand down on the table, a straight look without blinking. Those things were once considered was a sign of dictatorship, now it is back, become a symbol of hope. Because of hope now no longer need reason but only need weight. Showrooms full of goods but few customers is not because no one wants to buy but because no one knows how long will the price remain the same. Shopkeeper selling in a state of anxiety is common. Direct, buyer pays in cash. Owner the shop immediately ran out to the street to exchange for dollars. Law or essential goods. Trading-selling is no longer a business but a game. Play survival every minute. In Berlin, I met a shoemaker who opened a shop for 30 years. He said that every day he shoe repair without words, but he still opened the door, still working. I asked why. He replied, "If I do nothing I will go crazy." I understand, because at that time labor was no longer available. It's not a way to make a living, it's a way to keep a reason. Mind in a world going insane. In mid-August a loaf of bread costs more than 500,000 ghosts. By the beginning of the month is already 2 million. An engineer's salary is not enough to buy soap. Those with fixed contracts, workers, teachers, doctors are the most hurt because they perceive monthly salary while prices rise by day. Many people go to work not because money, because they don't know what else to do. The nonsense again becomes status. The general attitude of an entire class was considered the backbone of the nation. In Munich, I attended a meeting of businessmen. Big. They talk about setting up the system. Pay with goods instead of money. Bad. One person suggested using coal, the other wheat suggestions. Someone joked, we can go back to the time of exchange. Are not who laughed because the joke sounded like a joke, more real than any speech from the National Assembly festival. At that moment, a cold wind began to blow across neighboring countries. Neighbors, French journalists, he began. Wrote that Germany was collapsing from within. They are not wrong, but they do not understand everything. Because this collapse does not create smoke or fire. It smolders like coals burning under ashes, no noise, no light, but hollow from the root. I remember one night strolling through the residence neighborhood, saw a street band playing violin in the middle square. In front of them was the box. Wood, inside there is no money but a nest bread, a piece of coal, a handful of dried apples. They don't ask for money, they ask for what they can feed them. And as the sound spreads throughout space, desolation, I suddenly think of civilization not die because of inflation but because of people stop listening to music. The press internationally, this is called a wave of broken trust. But the German people do not need the concept that they live with it every day. They teach their children I have to spend money as soon as I receive it. They teach each other how to spot fakes, how to exchange quickly, how to avoid being scammed in the black market. In that world, wisdom is a new weapon, more powerful than guns, more valuable than gold. And then at the end of summer, when the early autumn winds begin to blow through Germany, I see so much fatigue covering everywhere, not exhausted body, physical exhaustion, but a lack of faith. Like as if an entire nation had used up all its energy amount just to stand firm. And now they are on their own. Why stand firm when you don't know who will I be tomorrow? Chapter 7. Heritage, Habsburg dynasty. No need to be a home learned to recognize. Death of an empire. The regime is never just the main event. Treatment. It is the slow collapse of a value system. Governance, a social system, and a class people who lived, believed, and served in that system. The HBG Empire, in ancient political structures and the most massive in Europe, not collapsed by gunshots followed by a long silence after a failure. And when that empire disappeared, lost, clothes, body parts separated, become a country without a homeland. Organs. Vietnam. The city used to be the left cultural and administrative heart of a region vast from the Adriatic Sea to Cap Eans. Now just the center of a piece, small and exhausted land. What remains after Habsburg's retreat was not spontaneous. Because of the confusion and lost direction. I came back one morning. Receiver. The sky is gray like the days the last month of a dynasty. The street is quiet but not that quiet. Peaceful. But is exhausted. People do not still have the strength to rebel. They have passed anger stage, entering stage shocked. The old aristocracy, dukes, counts, and people used to run the provinces of the Dan-Motia region or Bohemia. Now sitting on the antique sale sidewalk, some people sell medals, coat of arms, even the king's handwritten letter. Base post-war wealth redistribution. The war did not take place through land reform. Land or tax policy. It takes place over inflationary The reform was transferred from hand to hand. People who live on savings, pension, inheritance transfer, those who have real goods, foreign currency, any estate. People who used to live by prestige credit now have to live by life skills. Exist a small pawn shop in Josep, where there used to be a sign saying, "Serving you, race." Now the sign is so faded that it is unreadable. Still readable behind the counter is a woman with silver hair and deep eyes. She said, monotone voice, "Someone was there yesterday. Bring a ceremonial sword of the Knight Royal Cavalry officer. I do not take." I asked why. She said, "Because now people do not kill each other with swords by gas bill." In a single dinner with an old friend who was an advisor law in the Spurg court, he said that every day still wear vest, wear both, polish shoes to shine even though they are no longer there. Where to go, that's the last way. I keep yourself to yourself, he said. But even elegance is no longer valuable. Rule in times of famine and poverty. Muscle. Businessmen get rich quickly fast. They buy back your real estate. Old clan with cheap price. They import goods from Western Europe, resale price 5 times, 10 times. And they understood one thing that the aristocracy did not never understand. Value is something that replaces change according to the crowd's beliefs, not must follow royal story. So while the former count had to go selling train tickets, then the cigarette dealers become bankers. Many people shirt, especially the educated middle class, awake. Began to believe that the new republic, this life is just a temporary joke. They remember about the empire like remembering a golden age sun. Even though I know that Spare is not perfect, even though there are many injustices, at least everything was in order then. Now then are not. Now no one knows what's going on, what is going on, and who is controlling it all. Chief. Amidst the ruins of memories, people began to cling to the myth. Image photo of Emperor Franz Joseph with beard, white and stern look, appeared back in the scrapbooking drawings. Even on political leaflets, he remembered, not for policy but because he was a symbol of a order does not change when the world out there in chaos. A fixed image, determination, even imagination, still brings feel better than reality. One old school in Vienna, where the teachers still wearing a suit and lecturing about the Roman Empire. The Holy Spirit code is as if nothing has changed. Change. During recess, the children don't play soccer. Ball, no joke. They lined up to buy bread. Half the ration is subsidized. From the American Red Cross. A little girl about 10-year-old told me, "I don't know the king, what is the emperor, but my mother said that back then people, we don't have to wait in this long line," said that naive and sharp. Like a knife small cut into the memory of a once proud nation. Proud monasteries open their dining rooms to poor people. People line up now only to get a bowl of thin soup. Someone wearing old fur coat, wearing jade ring, but still bowed his head to ask for another piece of bread. There it's not a sad scene, it's realistic. In that world, pride weight has no place when stomach growls call and Vienna. The capital of an empire was lost. Now the Central European Relief Station, artist and intellectual class people, once the cultural pride of Spurg, now living on subsidies from the Organization International. A famous conductor said, "Tell me that you received the invitation only orchestra in Stockholm but can afford the train ticket." "I can control a symphony by mailer," he said. "But not enough money to go to the train station." And then when winter comes along with the price of the furnace 10 times heating, ancient buildings, once a royal villa, now a mansion, dormitory, reception room, dormitory, dining room into kitchen, war, and among oil paintings covered with dust, people burned wooden chairs to warm themselves, cook porridge in a used brass pot at the banquet. Matter disintegrates according to in its proper order, from subtle to design weak, from royalty to survival. There are family that lived in the light chandelier, now used for dim lighting of oil lamps next to the door. They don't complain, they don't rebel, they just quietly wait for something. It is unclear whether it is a recovery or a termination. And in that silence, I hear a sad psalm word. It is the sound of a civilization on his last breath but still trying. Smile. A false teacher who once philosophy lecturer at Vin University said to me, "We are not defeated by the enemy, we were defeated by his own memories. He did not justify, he did not resent, he only describes a reality when it is too late. The past becomes too beautiful, the present becomes too unacceptable, and people are arrested. First lived in a lost world where the price each clear, each hierarchical, each have a throne. So the Spurg Empire not only leaving castles, the crown, the ancient laws, it left behind a spiritual heritage that is both great and heavy, the foundation that the new Austrian Republic did not can bear, and that more than anything any economic factors that have caused the elderly island in inflation and lost. They just lose money, they lose the sense of belonging. About something more lasting than oneself. Me. Chapter 8. The paper chase in the fall, only farmers are still living well. Peace in the country now, while in the market is struggling with rising prices by the hour. Countryside, where land and food are still in hand, keep steady quietly. City people speak out, breathe, take to the streets to protest, and people the countryside is quiet, weeding, milking and exchange vegetables for supplies. In a world the world is upside down, they become the only class most capable of saving himself and not need to believe any promise from Berlin. City dwellers flock to the region countryside every weekend, bring the suitcase full of paper money, old clothes, jewelry, family heirloom, in exchange for butter, eggs, potatoes, anything that can be eaten or kept be valuable. Pilgrimages series not for faith but for survival. I witnessed a family from Frankfurt bring the ancient Miss and porcelain bowl set, the type that used to be displayed in aristocratic mansions, in exchange for a bag of rice. The farmer looked at the item for a few seconds, then shook his head. I can't eat it. Major currency. The problem has become a joke. The sheet silver is printed continuously, the denomination is getting higher and higher, million then billion then trillion, but value then free fall. People no longer count bills. Money, they weigh, no longer keep wallet, they carry sack. A man told me that every morning when he went to work, his wife gave him a suitcase of money, if not spent in day, by night it has become scrap paper. Meanwhile, a new profession blossomed, bargain hunters. Those are the people hired to exchange cash for goods as soon as possible. They came to the market from open the door, collect everything that can be sold again, room freshener, charcoal, shoes, canned butter. They don't need to understand inflation. What is that? They just need to be faster than everyone else. And in that race, morality is far away. The worst small and medium enterprises collapse. Poor each series. They can't pay salaries. Timely, unable to price the product, cannot import raw materials. In one printing house at LPC, I saw the owner tearing each old contract page for heating. Because of paper, the cost of printing invoices is more expensive than the profit. A working day. Meanwhile, those money dealers and foreign exchange speculators again get rich quickly and become more and more arrogant. Small banks used to be self-sufficient. Pride in dedicated service has now turned into disorganized furnaces. Client come not to save but to withdraw money as soon as possible. Have a bank even hang signs. We just change money if goods are included. Money and the two became an odd couple, attached to each other. Each other as an unstable chemical reaction. Meanwhile, the federal government remains continue printing money to pay workers, officials, workers on strike in R and other expenses that they do not control. Floating every time questioned, they replied, this is an emergency. But the emergency lasted for 2 months. Year. And now all the promises are gone. Slips from the listener's ears like rain on the car window. An economics professor at Bonn, who used to teach monetary theory, bad. He looked at me and smiled bitterly. All the pictures of me teaching students are all on fire. Become a game. We used to, he added. Believe that inflation can be controlled by monetary tools, but when confidence is lost, broken, all tools become useless. Then he asked me how many dollars I had in my pocket bag when I replied. He nodded almost. Craving. Now only dollars are books. Didactic. Neighborhoods in Berlin, Ham gradually turned into underground support. People don't go to the store anymore. Surname come together secretly to exchange things. I got what I needed. Woman wear velvet jacket to find cooking oil. Older brother the civil servant took his fountain pen and went looking for bread. The old couple exchanged their wedding rings for potato bag. The transactions were quiet. In the dark, as if self-esteem could be saved if no one was looking. See. A mother told me that she had bring wedding photo to exchange for cough medicine. Child, she neither cried nor complained. Mind. She just told him not to be my child. Cured. It is the kind of reason that has transcended every layer of emotion. Survival logic. Dried, cruel, ruthless but undeniable. And in her eyes, I saw no sadness. Resentment, only see emptiness. About empty where faith once stood. Between all that chaos, the government continue to insist that they have a plan, each a new order every week, a currency unit, new currency. A short-term hope is pumped into society like morphine for cancer patients. Final stage letter, but people do not still listening. They don't care about politics, monetary stabilization or reform policy. They only care about the price of eggs tomorrow morning. Increase more in Bren. I witnessed a crowd rushed into a store. Candle. Not because of the power outage but because of them. No more money to buy coal. A candle, what was once a decoration, has now become something as precious as dinner. And when people, we must choose between light and darkness. Belly, they will choose the light to see. Eat the last piece of bread. In the Western press, people started. Germany was first called a paper society. Not because of overprinting of banknotes, and at all costs treatment becomes as fragile as paper. Friend can have a suitcase of money today but only need a rumor. Tomorrow you will not can afford the train ticket. You may have a position, degree, reputation, but if not changed you get food, you are also empty-handed. Paper, whether money or diploma, is useless. Meaning if it can't save you from the hungry. People who used to mock farmers is ignorant and backward now struggling to return to the homeland ask for each egg. And the people who writing books about modern society sitting hours sidewalk. Cigarette lighters sometimes sold even their own manuscripts. I saw an old writer changed his manuscript. His hand took a box of butter. He said, maybe that avocado eater will never read my work, but at least I still live to write again. One early winter night, I stood on the balcony of a small hotel. In the cold wind and deserted street, only footsteps, hurried feet on the stone. Under the dim light, a skinny boy passed by, pushing a cart. Wood filled with silver foil, not for consumption but to burn. He stopped at a corner. Street, light a fire and warm your hands by the flame. Red glow from the bills bearing the image of national heroes. I realized that was the last image, the most authentic of this era. Buy in that paper chase. No one win, no one can catch, no one can escape out, and everyone had no choice but to run. Run until tired, exhausted and resigned. Admit that this game has never been public equal. Chapter 9. The struggle for the Rua region. There is a strange paradox in the text. Human qualities. The more internal division, people are more united when facing with external enemies. Germany at the beginning of the year 1923 is a broken piece, political turmoil, economic chaos, social division turn. But when the French army entered the industrial heart of a nation, patriotism flared up again, the body's final defense reflex dying that particular month. People, France and Belgium sent troops to occupy the region because the reason called the performance of the obligation to compensate often. The French government said that it had not fulfilled all transfer commitments coal, so they have to go get it in person. But behind that reason is coldness of power. Parinka, Prime Minister of France, no more negotiations, he wants control, he wants to punish. And Rua is the biggest lever. In response, the German government did not use guns but used intimidation. Obey, they ordered all the workers to go to the top. Factories stopped running, trains stopped roll away, office locked. Not one which workers work under the supervision of French control. It is a form of reflection. Passive resistance, but extremely dangerous because the German economy depends on manufacturing coal, steel and electricity, all located in Rs. I arrived in Sen at the end of the month. Road cold street, no coal to burn, no car running, workers wearing shirts standing around small fires in tattered clothes, cook soup from wilted vegetables. They don't laugh, no, talkative, they know they are fighting but not sure why. Germany. Someone told me that the last idea left in the empty pocket of I. But strikes also need money. And to pay salaries to hundreds of thousands of workers when the employee is not working, Rice Bank continues to work. Printing money unprecedented speed. Once cities and regions are being pumped with cash to maintain morale against foreign invaders state, and with the shouts of love water, hyperinflation wave broke out like dry straw touching fire. Factories no more production, no more taxes, okay, money only flows in one direction from home. Printed into the hands of the people and then disappeared. Every new bill printed is a nail put in the coffin to honor the government cannot stop, because if you stop, the strike wave will collapse, the spirit of rebellion will, the resistance will collapse, and the French will win. Win without firing a shot. Meanwhile, the German press became filled with emotion. Touched the normally moderate newspapers now switch in a decisive tone. We know Baurua is the soul of the nation, every ton of coal is a blank bullet. Enemy journalists turned into warriors, words and people, tired but hungry, thirst for self-esteem. Cling to every line like clinging to wooden stakes in the flood. At one workers' meeting at Bum, crowded room, oversized, unheated, but full of people. The man stood up and said, I used to love my country, but now if needed, I will burn down his house to keep out the French, should. The crowd applauded. No one saw the words. Crazy, because in the hunger for self-respect, one can believe anything. But after the applause are the shows. Empty morning, no more coal, electricity, each area is cut off, the factory is clinically dead, the streets are as cold and silent as winter bird sounds. People live by coupon subsidies and relief goods. Mostly hastily gathered from the unaffected states occupied. Every day that passes is a test to see if national spirit can. How long before the stomach is empty? Break it all. In Dortmund, I met a family of 6 living in a house, small room. The father was a blacksmith, now holding the little son sitting quietly beside kerosene stove. We will not, he said, work for the French, but if there is still no milk, I will not need it. Who said I have to go to work? That's the real limit. Patriotism, drawing limits with the cry of a child. While there, the French army also gradually lost patience. Ring. At first they thought the resistance would soon broken, German workers will return to work job. But as the peak weeks drag on, months later, they turn to repression. French police seize markets, expel local officials, ban newspapers, indigenous people, supply blockade, tension straight up the ladder. And in the gloomy atmosphere then, national anger is even more. Light a fire and spark. A newspaper vendor is French soldiers shot dead for refusing to surrender. Anti-occupation leaflets. Death. His work was not mentioned by the international press. But locally, it becomes icon. A silent funeral, but there were thousands of people following, no one shouting slogans, not holding banners, just footsteps echoed like the echo of a rage is being compressed. While then, copper continued to lose value to the point of no return. Measurable. A loaf of bread costs several million in the morning to the afternoon, already double. Prices are not listed. Another board that can be shouted by mouth. Those people going to the market carrying suitcases of money, carrying sacks of change, in exchange for small portions of food. More every day. The world of silver paper now is the world of silence. Mute because of nothing. Who can still ask the question until when? One afternoon at WL, where a woman child holding small child exchange wedding ring for a box butter. The salesman refused. Avocado tomorrow, even more expensive today, he said. She's standing there, hands clasped, not crying, not beg, just say, then you keep it. Self-respect, I hold death. I don't know what you mean, neither do I know what happens next. But that sentence kept repeating in my head. Me all the way back. By month third, the Uyghur government began to panic. Actually, they know they can't print money forever. They know the situation of Roe is the bottleneck. Tighten their necks. But they also know if step back, the wave of extreme nationalism, the apocalypse will rise and engulf everything. Surname between two flames, one side is foreign state, one side is the wavering people. And in that state, they choose silence. Silence is not ignorance, but dare not say what everyone sees. Water Germany is dying not because of guns but because faith has been replaced by symbolism, hollow statue, they are living by mouth. Brand, die by face value. And while groups of people still holding banners high anti-occupation in every room, kitchen, every street corner, every little dream, a bitter truth grows silently that no one came to save them. No France, not England, not America, and even more so not their government. Chapter 10. Summer 1923. Summer 1923. The M coin has actually stopped working as a coin, no one uses it anymore. Exchange. The seller did not accept, the person buy without carrying, markets, stores, even the humble pub is from refuse cash unless it is foreign currency or barter goods. German silver paper printed and has the dragon and phoenix national emblem also only is still a piece of paper, sometimes not even enough to pack food. Morning of the month, Berlin, a man comes to the counter to buy a loaf of bread, giving a bill of the denomination 500 million ghosts. The seller looked at him, dipped shoulder and pointed to the sign hanging behind. We no longer count money, please change to coffee, soap or dollars. People. The man left quietly, without anger, said nothing because he understood and it was too much. Get used to that nonsense. People began to invent their own systems. Private exchange system. A can of fish in exchange bought 2 loaves of bread and a bottle of cooking oil, get 3 bars of soap. A tram ticket, if still usable, can be converted into minutes. Use electricity in other people's houses in the world. In that world, the only thing that has value is anything that can be held, eaten, burned, or can be exchanged immediately in the countryside. The coin doesn't even appear. The markets became places to exchange vegetables for food. Salt, milk for medicine, pork for net fish. People snicker whenever someone from the city carrying cash, they called that is dead paper, not a metaphor. Vaughan is a realistic description. The businesses, large enterprises, especially water companies abroad or having relations with foreign countries, set up a separate accounting unit, usually in dollars, pounds or yellow. Salary is paid on a sliding scale. Price but still cannot keep up with the speed of loss. Price of the mark. An industry worker then told me, Monday morning, I received salary enough to buy a bag of potatoes until noon. Wednesday, only enough to buy 2 tubers. Those people who still keep foreign currency live like that. Kings. They eat at restaurants, wear Western clothes, call a taxi, rent a big house. No one asked them where to get money, everyone knows. While most people sell their underwear to exchange get cooking oil, then a small group accumulate dollars. Law. Franc and the pound living in the middle of Berlin as if there was no crisis take place. It was a brutal division. To the point of being blatant, but no one can stop it. In Vienna the situation is not the same. Better Austrian people. After the proof their money melted, looked over. Germany is like a mirror to see the future. I meet a college professor who makes a living write applications for hire for illiterate people. He said, the most frightening thing is not hunger but knowing that everything you believe all the time, life can be lost in just one moment. Month. Central banks, ministries, finance, ministers, all of them no real power, they are just shadows following the event. When they announced a new policy, prices have been double. When they try to adjust exchange rate, black market is 3 steps ahead. No one believes anymore that the government can do something effectively, even government. A dark room in Klent. I met a group of former workers. Work at the shipyard. They sat around a wooden table with candles and black bread on it and a bottle of cheap wine. No one said nothing much, only one person spoke, brother, you know. There was a time when I believed that I will live long enough to retire. The group laughed, no sarcasm, no bitterness, just as a hollow laugh like a sound, a remnant from a time when hope still existed. Worth it. Another old man pulled out from his pocket 1 billion bill, he stacked it into a plane, throw it out the window, fly away, take my dream with you. Are not who reacts because who has done the same position. One way or another, burn money, tear money, draw on money, lining floor with money as a kind of final self-mockery together for what used to be called the national currency family. In July, the situation reached a fever pitch. The height of absurdity. A father had to take his daughter to the black market to exchange get milk for malnourished son, not for sale but for pity. I have nothing left. He said, only my daughter is not used yet. No one dare to look long at that scene. Because the truth when too obvious will make people confused crazy. Meanwhile, the political class in Berlin continued to meet and develop make resolutions. A department chief financial officer said on air that Germany is in control of the situation, shape and have long-term strategy. War, if there is such a strategy, no one but he knows. Because on the streets people are no longer any strategy other than changing this, take the other and survive from meal to meal. In government offices, the mass layoffs due to lack of talent. Salary, many people sell them all. Office furniture to have money for lunch. Have where leave certificates are printed unpaid with the words due to circumstances. Nation. The buildings were once filled with administrative energy, now resonates the worn-out slippers of the few remaining people mopping floors and being vague about his job. Factories, if still operating, only produce export of barter goods, oil lamps, canvas, room softener, lighter. Industries was once the industrial pride of virtue. Machinery, precision engineering, chemicals now become a luxury. No room in black market economy. One does not need to be creative, just hold on. Resist. And in that world, a kind of people new survival broker appeared. Surname not trading goods but trading information, news, rumor, relationship. Who do they know? Still have rice, who still have gasoline, who has a dollar exchange law. They move quickly, speak softly, always keep your distance. In an economy wild, they are the ones who know the way about, not to the future but to the day tomorrow. At the end of August, a letter from a doctor in Stuttgart wrote, I used to save people with medicine, now I save. A person is equal to a handful of potatoes, he added. That I never thought I would live to see. Medicine is more expensive than vegetables. Grandfather not sad, he was just confused for every reason. The knowledge he had learned was inapplicable. In this era, the era in which the system money has become a kind of illusion collective. And when the illusion is broken, only hunger and fear again. And so it was. Summer 1923 ended without a cool rain cold but with a storm bill. Attack. Invisible fever corrodes every cell of society. Germany did not need a revolution at that time. Network. They just need something, anything. What makes the clock stop? Because if everything continues like that, no one is left live to talk about it. Chapter 11. Haven style. No situation in summer. Well, it was so bad that Dr. Rudenhaven says he can't make it bad worse. He is the head of the central bank. German Reichsbank, and with all its wisdom, uncle, neat, dedicated and absolute trust in his doctrine, he become one of the contributors to the push the fastest copper mark to fall into the abyss in human financial history. Haven st not an ordinary person. Grandfather intelligent, studied law, economics, and politics at prestigious universities. He served his country with loyalty. Without a trace of doubt. But that's why he believes in what he says. Despite the fact that reality repeatedly proves this to be the case, on the contrary, and he never accepted that he was the one strangling national currency. His point of view simply, prices go up because costs go up. To compensate must print more money. Do not print more, people cannot live, but when people cannot live in social order will break. Then print more, print forever, guys. Economists criticize, journalists speak up. Voice, the congressman protested. But he insisted he did not see himself as wrong. Because every time the government prints money, it still has, even if salaries are not paid, people can still buy vegetables. So why stop? I had the opportunity to observe Haven lightning strike from afar in the afternoon hearing at JCH. He sat up straight, serious face, hands always placed straight short on the table. When a delegate questions that uncontrolled money printing, does it devalue the mark? Grandfather answer slowly and confidently, value money does not come from quantity but from faith and nation. Sounds like a sentence proverb but completely empty within the central bank. Many young staff began to doubt. They see the printers work day and night. They see cash release orders are not available stop. They see reports of devaluation. To the point of having to rewrite the scale. One person, the officer, told me, "We don't print money, we print collapse." But no one dares to stop because Haven St is still there. There, and he is the law. Every day passes through millions, then billions, then thousands. Trillion marks were released into the market. Money goes into people's hands and then disappears like dust. No one keeps it for more than a few hours. A loaf of bread costs 5 million a day. Morning can go up to 15 million in the afternoon, so as to print more endless loops that each the return deepens the belief. Remnants of the nation, a printing house, money in trace 10. The printer roared like fighting engine. The workers do work in stuffy air, eyes dark circles from long shifts. One person, the young woman, had just finished stacking the new batch of money. Said, "We print money so fast that too many to count, but will be imprinted for life. I can't even buy the room I'm living in rent. Why not take a break?" I asked. She replied. Words, "Because if I quit, who will continue this crazy game?" That answer, what seems like a joke, is actually true. The story of the Haven St era. The whole country is a game where people are forced to role play, even though I know the ending will be tragic, dramatic. People play the role of consumers. The bank acts as the issuer, government plays the role of leader, but everyone knows the play is coming to an end. And there will be no applause. When the printer continues to run non-stop, Haven St still appears regularly at press conferences. In meetings with politicians' family, he does not shy away from the media. He dialogues, and in every dialogue, he emphasized the same point. The problem is not printing money but poverty. Speculation, coal shortage of foreign powers outside. He looked at society as the theologian sees hunger as a challenge. From the outside rather than as a result of inside. But on the street, people, no explanation needed, they need cake, noodles, coal, and the belief that tomorrow will come no worse than today. Those things Haven Estate is not available. People called him by many nicknames: father of scrap paper, the pastor of the fad coin, regret, the person who looked after the death of M. Never in financial history in modern times, an individual is attached to the corruption of such a coin. Merchants began printing price lists. By the hour, private printing houses sprang up like mushrooms. To help companies change their signage, continuous currency prices, there are pre-printed restaurants menu with price box. To write by hand every moment of the day, a cup of coffee can triple in just 1 hour. And when asked if he was strangling consumers, a shop owner just smiled or not. I just tried to breathe faster than the flow. Flood water. One morning in early September, I met a man standing in line at the bank. He had a suitcase in his hand, paper money, not for deposit but for exchange. Take gold or dollars. When it's your turn, give. The interpreter said he was sorry, we stopped exchanging 30 minutes ago. Exchange rate changed. He sat down on the ground and looked into the suitcase like looking at a soulless body. Then he quietly stood up, hugging his suitcase. Step. I don't know where he's going, but I know he just aged 10 years. In a moment at a bus stop, electricity, the ticket inspector refused to check card next month. We are no longer time to count money. Who has money? Then go, whoever doesn't have, go too. System. Public capital is set up to operate by reason, acceptable operating hours, pain and chaos. In a society where regulations have not kept up with the pace of depreciation, sometimes kindness is the only tool, the only thing left to keep everything from collapsing right away. Mid-September, when the exchange rate dollars up to billions of dollars, a group of parliamentarians, conservative MP, asked to meet Haven-style to ask him to resign in a closed-door meeting, but then leaked out a saying of, he said, "If I stop now, the country will die of anemia." For him, money is blood and he is the heart that pumps it. He didn't see that the blood had thinned to such an extent. No more oxygen, his heart is doing what every failing heart does. Banging around in panic. Death of the mark does not come from an event single, it is a long process with each day, every print order, every stray statement Mandarin. But if I had to find a face symbolizes that collapse, is that Rudolf Havenstein. He did not steal, he not corrupt, he is not stupid, he believing in the wrong thing for too long, too deeply, too blind and polite. Capital is not drilled tolerance for sincere but wrong people wrote his name on the page bloody map. I heard Haven St died in November. He died not long after the German economy hit bottom of despair. Some people told him some died of exhaustion, others said of shame. As for me, I believe he died because he didn't still have reason to live when your money spent a lifetime to save no longer exists. In Chapter 12. The bottom of the abyss. The resistance, the pole at the corner, was the last symbol for national pride. Time has changed smell. It is no longer a heroic fire, but a smoldering block of black smoke. Those the headless slogan screamer goods, now whispering to each other in the kitchen, how much longer can we endure? Because between the white snow of October and the smell burnt potatoes in the pot, people no longer hear the sound of war drums, only stomach growling. December in 1923, Germany had reached rock bottom. Deep. The Marx was once a source of pride, of industry, of trust, of order. Now lying under the mouse's feet, know who else counts the price by the cheek. 1 in dollars, in pounds, in rice, equal to hours of manual labor. The doors, the goods always have price tags. They put someone on duty at the door only to quote verbally according to hour. Back in Berlin, in an afternoon, cold afternoon, the strong wind blew away old bills scattered all over the street like fallen leaves. The pile of silver paper once held a mirror, the king's face, once circulated as a treasure object, now becomes a chair backrest, folds up fan, or simply let the ash out. And on each of those bills, people no longer look, see value, see only traces of a failed promise. German people do not rebel, they do not take to the streets to destroy, they don't overthrow the government, they just quietly withdraw from all games. As one, the audience left the theater when the play ended. It's been too long and there's nothing left to wait for. They stopped listening to the radio, stopped reading newspapers, stopped to the polling station. They keep food stamps as a souvenir, keep the passport as paper, a testament to civic trust. One woman who was the principal of a school, elementary school, she said, "Every morning I still in school but no more students, their parents could not feed them breakfast, no shoes for them. I sit in teacher's room, drink hot water and wait noon." I asked why she still came. School. She replied, "Because if not, I will forget who you were in the economy, that clinical death." The only person left worked as a printer and bank clerk row. But just to perform those actions, self-destruct, some banks require customers' scheduled withdrawals. Are not because of lack of money but because of lack of time. Counting time, the staff got tired of counting hundreds of millions of ma in exchange for 30 francs or some pourbour. Never change money is like digging a grave. Live Munich, I saw a mother wrapped in a child in print instead of blanket because of paper money too thin. The child does not cry, it just lay there, eyes open as if understanding that even crying doesn't solve it. What the mother looked at me and said, "We don't need anyone to give us money, just someone tell me this nightmare, there will be an end." And just in time everyone seemed to have given up hope. A strange silence began to spread throughout the city. Market, no one moans anymore, no one blames Hook, no one asked why. They just started waiting for what is unclear, maybe a miracle, a new government or simply the end of a long nightmare best of the century. In that calm, rumors began to take root like weeds on barren land. People then whispers about a new currency, a leader, new general, a secret deal with Western cafes are closing soon. Door, in the rare bakery still on sale, and at the tram stations cold, people whisper it's coming. Something is bound to happen right on time. Then a name appeared, Gustav Stresemann. He is not a stranger, but never considered a god. Save the world yet with a series of bold decisions, cut off the money printing policy, declared end resistance in RU, establish a temporary money tied to land. He started launch a final intervention to regain the trust that was crushed once. Peace for the past 2 years. And people like shipwrecked people saw a streak of light on the sea surface, began to turn around, not because they believe absolutely but because they don't nothing to lose. When the new Ren 10 currency max was released, people did not ask in detail, they do not discuss policy. Money. They just want to know with the paper, hey, can I buy dinner? Sentence. The answer is yes, and that is the magic most of the currency. Not in nature physics but in the ability to restore faith. Once the trust returns, though fragile and reserved, society began to restructure. Bamboo, the price tag stopped dancing, people. Seller agrees to hold price until end day. Buyers dare to wait until tomorrow morning. Go to market, shops hang signs. I got Gen 10 max. However, the change does not come from happiness, it comes from exhaustion. The Germans were drained dry. To the very end, and in absolute with that hope, they accepted the new currency as the fire survivor took burnt blanket. Not warm, not beautiful, but that is all that remains. Session. The first morning when Jean and Max was discovered. Onion, a cake seller in Lozich, paste a small piece of paper on the door, 1 Jean and nest bread. Under the paper is a small pot filled with ashes, possibly from billions of people. Old was burned. People lined up, no jostling, not angry, not resentful, only waiting. Eyes like light, the eyes of a child who has been starved for too long. Now see mother's hand again, and in silence there, Germany took its first steps out from the abyss. But the price to pay, not just the devaluation of money but the loss of cool soul. A society that once believed in order, reason, honor now understand that all of these things can be sell cheap if people are scared long enough, hungry long enough, and sleep deprived long enough. The damages that love will not disappear when the coin money stabilized again. They will lie there like scars on the skin. Remind a whole world system that when money dies it is not just business sacrifice but also the human being in them. I also fell into a coma. Chapter 13. When Dr. Hen Mass was appointed as Special Commissioner for National Currency November 3, 1923, no one expected too much hope. He is an unusual name. Unfamiliar to the public, just out of the world private banking world, but in the heart Germany. Where people are too tired with big names, promises, big failures, then that strangeness has a pleasant look. As if only an outsider can do what the guys in the machine do. Dare not. And within just a few weeks, the name Sketch has become iconic. Not because he gives hope but because he gives limits. In a society living too long with loss of control, people, we don't need more encouragement, they need boundary. And Streck brings the boundaries. First time in 2 years not knowing where bottom, he stopped printing money. He doesn't stop by giving a bare command. Grandfather, go straight to the central bank, clean up, give up all old privileges, tear up all plans, printing pending signature. He stated, since today, any banknotes are not allowed backed by real assets will no longer be available. Accepted. The people around surprised, they had heard the hard statement snakes before but no one really dared act like that. At the same time, STCH supporting the release of Jean and Tenma, a coin new money not based on gold but on land and industrial property mortgages. It was a bold move, even absurd in the eyes of many classical economists' dictionary, but he understood one important thing. Importantly, people do not need to guarantee gold. They need a reason to believe that the paper they hold in hand someone standing behind bear responsibility. In an early press conference first as Monetary Policy Commissioner he did not read a speech, he just raised the Gen 10 bill and said, here is the coin only valid from today. Anyone who violates will be considered to be sabotaging the nation. Family, concise, cold, unadorned but effective. Because the Germans heard too many empty words. Now they need command. First time in a hallway cold in the Ministry of Finance. He was tall and thin, facial expression so resolute that it was almost carved. Suffering. He didn't shake my hand, just nodded. When I asked, "Do you believe you can stop, is inflation okay?" he replied, "I no choice, or I do either that or Germany is dead." That's not it. Is not arrogance, it is awareness. Clearly place oneself in the seismic history. The following days, he did not leave the office room. Mr. D at once requested to release, eliminate unnecessary expenses week, reject any proposal to print more, even just as several million ma, a number that was once considered so small that it is not worth thinking about next. He knows that just one soft heart, the inflation machine will restart, and again this maybe no one has the power to put it down again. Sec does not seek to please people. He did not speak emotionally, not on the radio calling for sacrifice, he just do the work and let the results speak for themselves. But it was that silence, in the context scene of a society abuzz with panic and contradiction, becomes strength. Once as the days passed, prices stopped rising, and the board listing starts fixed, and on the mold people's faces, for the first time in many years month appeared something like doubt. Hope zone back to a small restaurant in Lozich. Last month, every time I came, the price of the dish changed 3 times during the meal. Lunch. This time the price list is still intact. Like yesterday, the shop owner sat wiping carefully, no longer looking at me with the same eyes, defensive eyes. He said, "I don't understand. No more money matters, but if you stretch can keep coffee prices like this another week, I will believe that we still have a chance." The merchants began. Get money back instead of just exchanging it goods. Farmers agree to deliver, go to the city but still wash cautiously. At the markets, sellers no longer shout out prices like bidding, but say the price in a normal voice. One simple things that have disappeared from life. Live too long. Faith. The only thing cannot be printed. Starting to creep in return as a wisp of smoke. Book also do not hesitate to touch. Mr. Saw mass layoff of bank employees. Use. Close down the parts that are no longer available. Function. Investigate cases of profiteering from black market. He once declared in war fight, we shoot traitors in peace jar. We must eliminate the price dumping. Word. That statement made many people angry. But also makes a lot of people start feel like someone is actually controlling the hand drive, and then like a domino effect contrary, faith spreads, not illusion, unpretentious but durable. One owner the shoe store started importing new goods. One the carpenter dared to hire more apprentices. Job. A mother buys warm clothes for her child. Feel that next winter money will be still valuable. Not because anyone told them to, as such because of the decisions, not stretches words. They feel that it has may be correct. I met him again in a closed hearing. He is still thin and sharp. Face still stiff but eyes no longer cold. I asked him, what made him dare stop printing money when everyone is scared? Will that throw the country into chaos? He did not answer immediately. He looked out the door. Window, where it's already raining lightly in Berlin, said, because chaos has already occurred, what I did was not stop it but to get people out of there step by step. 1. That's the biggest thing Skitch does. Did not the invention of money, nor enact laws novelty, but rather the restoration of an old concept, the simplest of money, that it must be trustworthy, and he understood that he wanted to people believe in money first. They must see someone who dares to believe in the record. Law. At the end of 1923, Germany was still, they haven't recovered yet, but they've stopped falling. And with those who lived through that summer, the feeling of no longer slipping is a miracle. Chapter 14. Unemployment outbreak. The man who carried out the monetary reform history never has any illusions about the nature of things. It's perfect. He knows well about preventing inflation. Does not mean the wound has healed. Love. It's just first aid. A social body that has been damaged overall and post-febrile infection levels. Hyperinflation. Germany does not wake up in the bright sunlight. They wake up in the afterlife of work, career and political beliefs, unemployment. One person was absent for 2 years. People struggle with the whirlwind of paper money. Ours suddenly came back like an old ghost, have a new face during the super period inflation. Everyone is busy even just to change money, queuing, black market trading or run around so as not to be left behind. This is when the currency is stable, when the state tightens spending, when printing money is no longer the way solution, then suddenly everything stops again. A series of companies closed for no reason. Bankruptcy because there is no reason to exist in the real economy. Businesses used to rely on cheap cash flow and capital infinite pumping from the central bank. Now have to face what they have forgotten from long. Real profits, real costs, and real needs. Real bridge. Many names once blossomed in the chaotic times now wither under the light of transparency. I go through the factory in Rue and saw the iron fence closed cut. Smoke no longer comes up from the chimney. Workers wearing old coats stand in groups outside, no chatting story, no protest. They have studied how to live without money, now they have to learn continue to live without work. A man, Mr. O, told me, I survived, through hyperinflation by trading butter and some dust. Now both are not for sale. Okay. People come back to buy in store official. But I have no more room. In that official world. That saying short but heavy as a rock because it reflects a bitter truth. The reform has saved money but not saved people. The government tried to respond with job creation program, unemployment benefits industry, encourage production. But they no more financial miracles, no more pump money as before. All hourly expenses must be calculated in real money, straight surplus real. So the support is also limited. Careful those who are used to easy money only. Now do I understand what cold is like. Strict budget business owners industry that once welcomed sketches as a hero, starting to worry they don't can also manage by trickery math. It is no longer easy to borrow capital to open wide. They have to cut, and each cut reduction is hundreds more people fall into dark area of unemployment where the scream was gone. Only sighs remained in lep rich. A woman told me that she used to had 3 jobs during hyperinflation: broadcast, selling cigarettes, babysitting, and translating letters, hands for the elderly. Now then, who needs anything else? They have stock, she said. Formalization, stable state, money, there is price back, but I don't have room. She was not angry, her voice was not bitter. But in her eyes was the emptiness of a man who has lived through madness and is left behind when lie try return to take hold. Unemployment rights in that situation no longer an economic event. It is social consequences of a systemic upset. Those who once lived on chaos, now cannot live in order. One ever traded time, skills, even dignity to keep up with inflation. Then no one buys those things anymore. And like all survivors of the apocalypse, they were lost. Lost in the reconstructed world. Above, newspapers and commentators began to write about post-inflation syndrome. As if all the nation has just escaped a mental illness collective economy, but unfortunately. Do not have which psychiatrist is able to cure you. A society that once believed that money could born infinitely. Entrepreneurs now must relearn the concept of saving. Those workers must learn to live with unemployment. Not because of war or terrorism panic, but normalization. Book no naive, he knew the consequences would come and he accepted. In a closed speech, he made it clear we had to take medication. Bitter. Those who survive will understand the price. Value of stability. But he also knows no one eats stability. And when the night while the thickness is still empty, people will quickly forget the kindness of the person who gave them out of the abyss. Politicians are eager, clapped loudly when Jinan was stabilized, now start to struggle to find a solution, for the question is how to keep the people's hearts when they start starving in peace. Party's extremism is gradually taking root in the land. Discontent in high unemployment areas. Secret meetings, youth groups, far right, the chanting began re-emerged because of the fact that abuse kill money but fail. Karma kills faith in one. Go back in I visited a town once lived by steelmaking. The factory is now what a pile of iron, on the gate is a line of painted letters read. We have suffered from inflation, but cannot bear to be forgotten. An old worker sat smoking on the sofa. Looked at me on the steps and asked, "Are you a journalist?" Huh. I nodded. He smiled faintly. Write what? Okay, just don't write that we Germany at the end of 1923 was no longer drowned in hyperinflation, but it dying in inner isolation. And that is the most fertile ground to sow. Dangerous seeds. We encourage listeners to buy and read to can fully appreciate the content of the book. This book. Now let's get started. Summary of this book. Chapter 15. The wounds were exposed. By the year 1924, when the hyperinflation mania is just for dust in memory, then the wounds that it left behind began to reveal itself. Not in the press, nor in the economic statistics, but in the soul. Each person. Germany is no longer scream again. They whispered, they hunched their shoulders, they continue to live. But it's not that life was once by the destruction of a money doesn't stop when the bill is lost. Price. It continues to smolder and destroy every structure. Social structure is based on belief in stability, morality, and justice. The young man in Dresden was philosophy lecturer. He told me that I used to believe in reason, but since I saw someone change a ring, marry 2 potatoes, I understand reason is not what keeps society running but the fear of hunger. He did not speak with a look. Bitter, simply as described anew, cruel and irrefutable in the buildings once middle class, now only the open paintings remain, the empty cupboards and old people living by memory. Many people never recover. They did not die of hunger because of a broken mental spine. When everyone moral values that they maintained throughout their lives broken in just a few months, no one teach them how to live in a society where honor cannot buy bread. Live Berlin. A nurse said she used to sell mother's winter coat to buy coal. When winter came, her mother died of pneumonia. Lung. I never forgive you me, she said. But I don't know either. What else to do? Hyperinflation is not kill her mother, but it puts her in a situation where any choice leads to loss. And in that kind of tragedy, survivors always have to bear the guilt error longer than death. Rich people, if smart, obedient and have assets abroad, not affected, but the rest are completely wiped out. Middle class, the pillars of democracy are broken, workers lost their jobs, farmers did not believe in urban, intellectual class lost way, and at the center of that vortex is a widespread sense of betrayal. Betrayed by government, by banks, by words promise, because the whole system was once considered as civilized. People started talking about it. Invisible force, international conspiracy, parasites, politics. Right-wing newspapers suddenly increase circulation, words that attack people, Jews, communists, pagans. Country, it all started to come back together. Like mushrooms growing after a poisonous rain. When copper money is stable, people will return to normal old. But no, they did not return, because during the period of value upside down, relationships are bought and sold, honor is spent like coins, people, the way of a whole generation has been restructured. Bamboo, no one can escape, even those the best person. A woman who used to be the music teacher told me that she can't play the piano anymore. My hand still, she said. But I no longer hear the sound. It's all just sound, rustle of crumpled paper money. I'm not understand what she means until I looked at her eyes like cracked mirror, reflects a life tarnished by things she never chose. Water. Germany did not collapse immediately after hyperinflation. But the silent disintegration of cell society has begun. In the pub, people stop talking about art, about future, about reform. They talk about the guy betrayal, about guns, about the need for an iron fist, and meanwhile, the child grew up with memories of those newspapers. Worthless money, about the meals bought with tears, began to ask parents why don't you do anything? The background civilizations do not collapse because of war. Because of losing faith in yourself. And Water. Germany 1924 is an example. They can have a home, machines, schools, and government systems. Government, but they no longer believe that order is something that can be kept. And when no one believes in the rules of the game and everything will come back with instinct, the instinct of fear, of doubt, of demanding a leader, the only one who can end all chaos by force, and so another chapter start, not in numbers inflation that pushes people to the moral limit. A chapter that no one thought he had put pen to paper, but it is the inevitable result of an era that allowed money to be printing indiscriminately and morality is consumed as fuel. And in the midst of all that still there are still questions that no one dares to answer. Word. If that happens again, we will what else? If once again the coin depreciation, can we still keep it? What in yourself? Thank you for your cooperation. Join me on my journey through WM Money Days. More than just a book, history is a straight mirror at the most naked moments of a society where money, morality, and belief news collapsed at the same time. If you have gone to here, you don't just read one sentence. Story, you and I witnessed of the crack that runs from the financial numbers to the invisible cracks in human personality. You have witnessed it's not just the mark collapsing, it's the dismantling of a moral order, of each the mental structure that makes up a nation civilized. That's not a history lesson. History, it is a warning. I really hope to hear your thoughts on the book this. Not to embellish anything that because each listener will look at it a different image, a different idea, different concepts of value, boundaries, and beliefs, faith and collapse. Please leave a line, think, a counterargument or even a anger, all are worth more than the silent. And if you have felt this is a trip with enough dark corners to think about, I invite you to be the leader next way by suggesting me book you want to listen to next time. It might be a work you haven't dared to do yet. Read, a story you want others to understanding or simply curiosity never been released. Please suggest all seriousness and desire to explore your break. Because I believe in books, the best books worth listening to are those that are still there. Still controversial, no one dares to summarize over or too real to be forgotten. Ask for buy and see you in a book.